Hi, this is Ed in San Diego. Actually, I'm not in San Diego. I'm in Palm Desert, California. And high temperature today was 115. It's now down to 95. Sun is setting. They expect it to go another 20, 25 degrees overnight, lower. Good. So special broadcast time tonight at 7 p.m. here in California, and we're going to be talking about Gen Z in the workplace and at home, but mostly about Gen Z in the workplace. How are they different? How are millennial and boomer bosses dealing with the Gen Z? There's a report out, and more than one, of the bosses giving up and firing the Gen Zs that they hired just a few months ago or a year ago. So, what are the reasons? We're going to discuss that with Dr. Ken Lloyd, PhD in organizational psychology and organizational development and effectiveness, and an author and a coach, and a regular commentator on Global TV Talk Show, which, of course, I'm really honored to have that. Christian Turnetten is not a boomer, I think a Gen X, and a senior manager, extremely well educated, uh, master in linguistics, communications, and you'll learn a lot from this fellow Christian. Really become a good friend and a great resource for me because linguistics is not my bag. Marketing and PR is, you might know that already. Okay, but along with Christian will be his 19-year-old daughter. And guess what? A Gen Z, highly educated, really bright. And she's got an interesting outlook on life already and a career path already. So it's pretty cool. And also is her friend and a colleague, uh, Israel. Israel is a student at Fullerton College in Southern California. And we're going to hear about uh, him and what he's doing and his outlook. So it'll be really an interesting conversation. So just stand by for just a minute. Hold on, we have Christian coming in. We're awaiting Christian to show up, and he's coming in at the moment. Hello, Christian.
Hey,
Hello, hello,
hi.
hello. Hi, Christian. And we are
Hi.
recording. Now, this is a prequel. Oh, as a matter of fact, we're going to just continue this. I've just been doing a brief introduction about the program, and
Oh,
here you
okay.
are. Okay, so we'll keep
Alrighty.
going. Now, Ken Lloyd is going to join us also, by the
Oh,
way.
that's wonderful. Natalie was
Yeah,
wondering whether he would. Here's
yeah,
Natalie.
yeah.
Hello.
Hi,
Hey,
Natalie. Welcome again.
Thank
Israel's
And
you.
here. Ed just
Israel's
said Ken
coming
Lloyd is
on.
coming.
Hello,
I adore Ken Lloyd.
hello, Israel. Welcome.
Hi, Ed. Am I coming through
Hi.
okay?
Okay. Okay, welcome. Ken Lloyd will be joining us in just a minute or two. But I was testing this out, and as you can see, it's a really strong connection.
Yeah, it's great.
I apologize for all that. So um, we're in our so the family has multiple properties, and so this one happens to be my favorite. It's in Palm Valley Country Club in Palm Desert. It's a beautiful home,
Hmm.
and
Excellent.
on a golf course, and there's very very strong internet. I'm right next to the thing right here, and super strong. So
Great.
there won't be any issues. So we're going to get underway. I do have your notes, and once again, we're recording now, and the AI note taker will join us at the top of the hour, if that's okay with you.
Mm.
And we can go 30 minutes. We can go to half past the hour. We can go longer. My Joanne won't like that, but I think. Uh, frankly, I think we can do whatever we need to in the next 35 minutes or so. So, how did you spend, Christian? How did you spend the balance of your afternoon today? What did you do?
I was actually working on the AI project, and I was writing a task for the AI software for the model to resolve, and it was about an Irish ballad called Arthur McBride, and I'm asking the model to summarize it, describe the protagonists, and so on and so on. So I'm talking about the recordings that were made in Maine as well as in Donegal. So yeah, spent a lot of time, lots of rabbit holes there. But I love folk music, so that's why I chose it.
So, was it playing in the background?
This particular song. There's a very funny little movie. It's like a video clip, and I played it for Aaron yesterday. And it's about this recruiting sergeant who tries to recruit an Irishman and his cousin, and they beat each other up at the end because they don't want to be recruited to fight for the English. I'll
Jeez.
send you the link. It's a 6-minute clip. It's really great.
That's really interesting. So Israel, once again, we're recording here, and so are you? I mean, just for clarity, please self-intro yourself. I understand you're a student and involved in a lot of activities at Fullerton College.
Yeah, that's correct, Ned. Or Ed, my bad. Sorry about that. Yeah. I full-time student. I'm a history major. I'm currently vice president of our on-campus Gay Straight Alliance Club, as well as just like kind of deeply involved within like the campus community. Um,
So
so
how many
I'm
students are there at Fullerton College? I'm personally not familiar with that.
um I'm gonna be honest, that number doesn't immediately come to me. I would wager a couple
I
thousand,
think that's
maybe.
about right, about
Yeah.
2,000 to 3,000. It's small. It's where, among other things, Richard Nixon went, and James Cameron, Titanic James Cameron.
Mhm.
Isn't that interesting? Wow,
Mhm.
it's
It's
so.
from 1913. It's really beautiful
Wow, yeah,
campus.
okay. So you mentioned Gay Straight Alliance. So that's more of a communications device rather than a political device, right?
It's a little mixed. Generally, so our sort of stated goal on campus is to foster um a safe space alongside again fostering positive interaction between the queer community on campus alongside the straight community. Generally speaking, we are very vocal about many of our wants at times, be it to the school or to the LGBTQ Resource Center. And actually, right now, recently, we were trying to it kind of emerged today through talks, um, form a very large complaint to the school because of the quality of the school lunches, in part because of some issues wherein one student was hospitalized because of an allergic reaction. Another could have been if they
Mhm.
weren't, someone else didn't try their food beforehand, alongside some food sensitivities and dietary restrictions for health and religion purposes. And so it's one of those things of like that's pretty recent. That's just like quite literally the most recent example from this afternoon, actually. But before that, as vice president, generally and well connected, I try to spread the word about our club. And all like school related activities. A lot of people like come to me and or I get them that information. Just generally, I'm decently connected on campus. It's sort of a running joke.
So let me ask you a couple of questions about this food sensitivity thing. Does the school publish the ingredients of the food that they put out?
So, to our knowledge, they simply put out the option on the menu. However, they do not fully list like the ingredients to my knowledge, as well as the staff are themselves not totally sure. And I would even say the cafeteria staff, especially, are understaffed. Recently, they actually fired a couple of the workers, and so that's a lot of strain on them. Um,
So it
and
sounds like
it's
we
been
it sounds like you identified a problem that can be easily rectified with the proper
certainly.
maybe AI tool. of researching what kind of food is actually served and prepared,
Certainly.
how it's prepared, and what the ingredients in it. That seems total common sense, has nothing to do with politics. It's safety and
Yeah,
wellness.
certainly. It's one of those things of safety. It was just arguably the conditions that led to the current situation for the food. Because previously we had a meal plan wherein every student received $12 a day for whatever options were available in the cafeteria, drinks, sandwiches, burritos, chicken strips, hamburgers, and the like. And so it was one of those things of like it was a full proper menu wherein all the ingredients were listed. However, because recently the money of that dried up because it was a stipend from the state, it was a whole thing with our food distributor on campus. I was speaking to a friend of mine who's a bit more in the weeds of this. Um, it dried up, and the school essentially opted to that one. So the main thing too is also, it's one of those things of it'd be convenience and also I think a matter of state law as well to not only post online the menu and the ingredients within said food items, but also to have it available on campus in the cafeteria, which is something the cafeteria is actually not doing right now. So we were currently in the process of laying out all these sort of complaints and issues and sending it to a couple of communication points they have. One person even recommended perhaps even petitioning. So this is like in the works right now, like emerged today essentially. So I kind of have to speak vaguely, but those are like the main points we've identified like immediately today.
There's a
That's
lot in there already,
fascinating.
right? Protesting food because people are hospitalized.
Yeah, and so that's actually been a big thing too, is recently we've been noticing within like the community as well. Many of our members are how we would call food insecure, meaning that within their financial means as well as just general um, lifestyles and availabilities are relatively unavailable. Goodness, my bad. That was an alarm to remind me for this meeting, funnily enough. That is, oh my God, so embarrassing. My apologies for that.
No, no problem. I'm the king of embarrassment sometimes, so don't worry about
Oh,
it.
Thus, you have good company. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Is that cafeteria sanitized?
To my knowledge, relatively speaking, it is. However, again, this is one of those
Good.
things of within like the health laws of California, they're not quite within regulation for the allowing students and essentially customers to know what is within the food. Like if you go to like a restaurant, you'll notice in like the really fine print, they'll say like this product contains peanuts or is cooked with peanut oil, X amount of
Right.
calories, so on and so forth. That's
Yeah,
that's
some
essentially
people
state law.
are allergic to the peanut stuff and
Certainly.
also bell pepper and I'm
Yeah.
not, but I don't eat that stuff either. Anyway, I don't.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those
That's
things of for people who don't have allergies, it's not as much of a need to know. I the person who was hospitalized, for instance, have like multiple food allergies.
oh,
And so what had happened was, so, he had asked the cafeteria staff, is there, I forget what food he said it was within like the meal. I forget what meal it was because it was just yesterday and I didn't get the meal. I haven't checked the menu myself yet. But generally speaking, uh, it sent him to the emergency room, uh, from what I can understand, or the hospital, either or. And so another friend pointed out that's almost grounds for a lawsuit should there be like sufficient evidence and the like. Um, and so this is one of those things of the school is providing lunches certainly within the best of their ability within such limited means. As a side note, I used to also be an accounting major, so it's like I understand cost of goods sold, costs and all that of distribution and the like. Um, but at the same time, too, the low cost should not justify low quality, especially within a school where students are many of them paying tuition. Uh, it sort of creates this issue of, if we're paying this much, then how does that money get distributed? Obviously, it's a very small amount of money, but at the same time too, a school should not fail, especially like within a cafeteria and a food space, should not fail in maintaining what should be very basic state law. That's how we feel about this, how we interpret it.
Well, Israel, thank you very much for being so eloquent about this issue. I had no idea this kind of problem could exist in a university level. Um, so, Natalie, Christian had told me previously that you already have a career path in mind, and that I think is really terrific. It's all about design and handbags, right?
No, that's my
No?
sister.
That's
Oh,
Angelica. That's you
oh,
haven't met
well,
her yet.
listen, see, I told you I was the king of embarrassment.
It's
So,
okay.
No, you got it.
tell,
You got it. Not totally wrong. It's just the wrong sister.
it's in the family.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, tell
For
us about you.
for me, I'm looking to get my PhD and then become a cultural anthropology professor at
Uh-huh,
either a
great.
community college or a university. And then during the summer, I would like to participate in archaeological digs where I help evaluate based on all the archaeological information, basically like what happened at the site that would cause the archaeological evidence to be where it is. So, if you find posts that look like they're from a house over here, and then there's remains of like a fire over here, okay, what does this village then look like? Something like that. Cultural anthropology professors are brought out sometimes to do that kind of work during the summer months, and that's something that I would love to do if I were given the opportunity to. So that's what I would like to do.
So I'm a film buff, and Raiders of the Lost Ark come to mind, of course,
Bullseye.
and so what kind of a dig would be relevant to that kind of a thing? Could you identify?
Yes, so I know for a fact that digs done in the United States, I was on one a few years ago in Illinois, Southern Illinois. It was a Native American um, settlement. And I know because I asked the program director, I know that they have cultural anthropologists and other specialists come out and help evaluate the site. And I do believe that they also do that in Europe. I think it's a little bit different. I don't know if they bring experts to come out and like do a full review at the end, or if the archaeologists already on site do that themselves. But I know that that option does exist, at least in the US.
Fascinating. So what kind of courses are you taking to prepare for that kind of a life?
So, being an anthropology major, I have taken an archaeology class, a cultural anthropology class. I'm currently taking a biological anthropology class, and I plan to take a world religions course. And I'm also currently taking an ethnic studies course. And all of those, I think, give me better insight into archaeology and anthropology and the study of different cultures and things of that nature. So following that and following my major, I think I'm on the right path for
Certainly
my
sounds
career
it.
goals.
I would think that actual buying an airline ticket and getting on some kind of a group tour of dig areas. Um, I don't know what I'm talking about, but it just seems like you should travel to some of these places and tie that experience in with the academic.
Well, in a way, I already have.
Oh, good.
In a way, I already have because I've been on three archaeological digs already. I've done one in Switzerland with my uncle, who was the site manager. I did one in
Youngest brother.
yeah, my dad's youngest brother. I did one in southern Illinois, where yeah, like I said, the Native American settlement. And that was a field school for 1 week. And then I did another one, which was 3 weeks in Spain, working on a castle graveyard and finding human remains. So I've done multiple archaeological digs already.
So are you familiar with, this is a little bit off the wall, but you're getting used to me, I think. But so, in San Diego, in the Old Town area, the Day of the Dead is celebrated. Okay. And um, in the Old Town area, I used to live there. We had a property on the hill above that area. And so, but we always walk through the area, particularly on the Cinco de Mayo. And um, so anyway, there are certain areas that are marked on the sidewalk in Old Town, San Diego, about where people are buried or thought to have been buried. But there haven't been digs there that I know of. So that's kind of an entertainment thing with
Mhm.
some touch of reality and history. I'm not trying to make what you do less serious, not at all, but I'm just trying to relate the audience, which is vastly different out there in TV land, to your classroom. So that's why I'm asking you to relate to what's the importance or the relevance to these digs to helping you get that degree and perhaps PhD in that uh, ever endeavor.
So I know for a fact that in order to get an archaeology degree, you need to have field experience. And I'm not 100% sure with an anthropology degree if you do need field experience, but I am keeping my options open by having already done 3 digs. So that's kind of how that helps me with the career path. Also, I'm hoping that with having dig experience already, even in an anthropology position or like, like a professor position, I have more experience with the material I would be teaching. So hopefully I seem like a better candidate for the position. Um, so that's kind of how I'm using that.
I see. So in the digs, the things that I've seen have just been in movies, and of course that's make believe. But I mean, the people go around digging with a teaspoon, afraid of disrupting things, and yet looking for a find. Is that real, or is that just Hollywood?
So there's a show that I definitely recommend you watch. It's called Time Team.
Yes.
And it's a BBC show, I believe. It's in England. But basically they just document the show is these archaeologists going on different digs and they just show you basically how digs work. And I've seen Indiana Jones, I've seen Lara Croft, and so far Time Team has been the most accurate to what an actual archaeological dig looks like. So I definitely recommend that if you want to see but like a show where you can see what a real dig looks like, definitely Time Team is the best I can offer.
So
Oh,
Time
good.
Team is
Thank
set
you.
up like a reality show because they're saying we have only 3 days to dig up the site. So it's a race against time, which makes it much more entertaining than it was just a documentary. So they have to figure out what to do first, what they can't do because they don't have time. What is the most promising thing, and then they get frustrated when they can't find anything. So it's great. It's on Amazon Prime, I believe. It still is.
So
If you have
Israel, I want to
that.
go back to you while we have this flow going. Um, one of your talking points I see is about identity in the what? In the workplace, at work,
Yes.
or in life, I guess, right? So
Work
what
and
I,
life.
what are you referring to?
So generally speaking, uh, one factor that sort of plays into workplace like politics, I guess we could call it, if we're sticking to that word, and also generally how some workplaces mingle can be on the basis of identity. So, for instance, my uncle, he was an LA County probation officer, internal and external investigations. And in it, he points out Hispanics are a minority within the group, whereas African Americans make up the majority. Uh, and so, in that, he points out how at times there are minor instances where because of these separate identities and cultural experiences and historical perspectives, because one of my major is history, and I have a lot of interest in sociology, archaeology, and even uh, anthropology. Excuse me for blanking on that right there.
No, it's all right. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
We're only
anthro-
live TV.
uh, thank you, Ned.
Yes.
Ed, oh my goodness, I am.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
know.
generally
Yeah.
speaking, identity, I would say, can play a lot in how workplaces can function, in part because of some of the baggage that comes with identity. I've taken two ethnic studies courses, currently taking one of them, Ethnic Studies 101, which is a broad American ethnic studies for um, general ed, and then Chicano studies. And so, like, for some context, being a Chicano, this idea arose in the 60s and 70s, around your time, actually, Ed. And so the idea is Mexican Americans who are, I'll say it in Spanish, ni de aquí, ni de allá. It means not from here, not from there. And the idea is we're not accepted here nor in
I like
Mexico. Two
I like that. That's really good. Yeah.
yeah, two American for Mexico, two Mexican for America. And so it's one of those things
Yeah.
of with that cultural baggage, you begin some of this friction with other people in the workspace who do not share that idea. This could be more on a personal level. And that's one of the things is in a workplace, is it truly possible to separate the personal from the professional? And to that, I kind of say yes and no. Because I'm also coming at this from an accounting perspective, because I, again, had an interest in doing accounting, so I'm familiar with business. And there is always that semblance of professionalism one should keep, but then there are moments where that professionalism slips. And my uncle has told me many times wherein that professionalism slips at his workplace. Where he was born in 1974, for reference. So he's 50 now. So this is sort of the intergenerational group beginning to mingle as well with all these aspects of identity. And sort of you get this mixing pot, and sometimes the ingredients just don't mix well. It's one of those things
That's
of
for
there's no
sure.
room.
Yeah.
It's one of those things of it's not. It's rather difficult to explain in such a short way, as well as because intergenerational identity and like these concepts, they're relatively brand new, in part because people have had to work longer. I'm sure, Ed, in your experience, you've probably had to work a little longer than you expected before retiring a bit, or some such like that. And it's one of those things where you still see a lot of remnants of older generations trying to collect what they can from work, in part because of the cost of living increasing. Meeting now with the new market of labor, the new younger, participants in the job market, and so that's already begin that clash of resources. In this instance, work and labor. And so that's already like one of those first, or not first, it's one of those other points of conflict within this big mixing bowl. Is not only do you have separate groups with multiple forms of cultural baggage, you begin to have different groups within those groups. And you just kind of mix them together.
We're getting some
Yes,
feedback. Oh, hi Ken. Welcome.
Uh,
I'm glad you're
Thank
not
you.
locked out in the
Yeah.
cold anymore.
What did I say that was wrong? I got locked out.
No,
Hi, Ken.
you were competing for
Listen,
space in the studio here, I think. So Christian, that I I must think that your dinner table is really a fascinating place to be with all this
It
kind
can
of
be. Yeah.
stuff going on.
We're talking about, interesting things. Like I wasn't at the dinner table, but yesterday I took Angelica, the one who's into fashion, I took her to school in the car. And as I was driving, she's asked me about rent control because she had heard about the proposition. And she asked me what my position was and to explain rent control. And coming from a 15-year-old, I think that's kind of unusual, you know. So yeah, we do. You're right. I mean, we do have interesting discussions, and the time that Israel's been here in the house, he's downstairs in my living room. We've talked about all the different topics we've covered in a short time. It's definitely interesting.
So Dr. Ken Lloyd is with us. just for the audience that's out there in TV land, please intro yourself much better than I can do it. Describe your PhD in that area of study, please.
At first, let me say it's nice to see Christian and Natalie, to see you again, obviously Ed and Israel. Nice to meet you, and just hope you enjoy the participating. It's quite a program that Ed has put together. We had such a great discussion with Natalie not long ago. Yeah, I'm Ken Lloyd, graduate of Berkeley, undergrad in poli-sci, went to get a master's and PhD in org behavior through the business school at UCLA. I was in consulting for many years, joined a client firm about 18 years ago, and consulted within the firm for all those years as a VP of employee planning and development, all the while writing various business books, from a dummies book on performance appraisal, which I just completed the new edition of, all the way to a book called Jerks at Work and another edition of that, and Be the Boss Your Employees Deserve, and Unlimited Selling Power. And I'll always enjoy writing. I had a syndicated workplace advice column that ran for about 20 years, 10 of which were syndicated by the New York Times Syndicate. So always interested in, frankly, studying people at work. That was my specialty in getting my doctorate, and that's what I've specialized in over all these years. And it's great to talk about these kinds of topics with Ed and the very interesting guests, all of you included, that he brings onto this program.
Thank you. So Israel and I were just talking about identity. No, he's in Fullerton College. So how old are you? Are you 19 or you're 20?
I am 19, yes. I turned 20 in March.
Okay. I turned 79 in June, just to give you an idea. So multi-generations in the TV screen here. Okay, but I don't have makeup on, or I'm just blessed with some good genes, and
Well preserved.
yeah, so I keep going. So I used to work a lot harder than I do now, but this is not retirement, Israel. I'm trying to survive. So I'm doing this because it's not work. I love it, and I here I am after 7 o'clock at night on a Friday trying to do
Hustling.
this thing. So, um, so Israel, you and I were talking about identity, and you're active on the campus in a lot of regard, a lot of fingers in the pies, if you will. But one of the things you mentioned that I latched onto for a minute was this identity thing. You're involved in a communications. I'm going to put words into your mouth here, so please correct me if I'm wrong. You're involved in a communications device, quote unquote, of gay, straight communications on campus. I don't.
Essentially, yes, communications,
Yeah. Okay.
fostering good relationships.
Yeah. Now, why are you doing that?
In part
I mean,
because,
I don't want you to identify anything that you don't want to, but are
oh, no
you,
worries, no worries.
do you have a vested interest in that, or are you just doing
Yes,
it
I do
because
actually.
you think it's a smart thing to do for PR
Yes,
purposes?
yes, I do. Generally speaking, it's in part because I myself am bisexual. I am queer, as some would put it, as well as I have a couple members in my family who themselves, because going back to that earlier conversation of history and identity, couldn't really express themselves until later in life. And it's one of those things of already it's I personally find, and I'm sure Natalie would also agree, being an anthropologist, expressing oneself is sort of what humans are based around and crave the most. I'm certain there are certain things where it's like, oh, you'd love to do this, and you know, I don't know. Like I had one friend who really loved expressing that he wanted to just wake up in the morning in a bathrobe and just sit around like on weekends, and that was like his like truest form of happiness. That's a little absurd and out there, and but I hope it kind of gets the point across. And so it's one of those things of we want to create a space where people can feel that they are truly accepted for expressing themselves in their truest way, as well as for those who don't express themselves that way or aren't queer, to also still understand that, these are good people. They're people. Some are prone to mistakes, some not great people. That's the way it goes. It's kind of a given with people. And generally, yeah, it's to foster that good communication, that good community community is like another big thing too, I would say. Um, as well as just to expand people's range of tolerance. And to revert back to our earlier talking, I don't know if Ken heard, but generally was sort of this idea that all the mixing of these groups and then groups within groups, some of them just don't meld. The idea is to sort of be proactive before any biases can sort of root themselves and sort of, okay, sort of subconsciously, like I've had good experience with this group. And so if I run into a member of that group later, I know how best to respond and carry myself and how to communicate and therefore continue to foster better relations. And quite frankly, I would say within this context of our call, that right there is already a good foundation of conducting business.
Ken?
Yeah, I think that's a really very good point. So we know that for dealing with personal growth, development, as well as with stress, anxiety, depression, among other steps to take, are to widen your network, meet more people, talk to more people, get involved with more people. If you will, get out of your comfort zone, which sounds strange as a way to reduce stress, but actually as you widen your horizons and learn more about others, you learn more about yourself and they learn more about you, and we all can build that way. And that those kinds of interactions are so important. And I think that the kinds of steps that you take to learn about people really help us grow and gain some fulfillment and help us carry our own lives and careers forward in areas that we're particularly interested in, and opening up doors to new ones at the same time, things we might not have even thought about.
So can you relate to what, I know you can relate, but can you apply, is a better word. Can you apply what Christian was just talking about, the identity thing, in the milieu of the college campus, which is really diverse? Relate that to the workplace and multi-generations and multi-everything that's in the workplace now.
So to me, it's what Israel is describing is, in a way, a dress rehearsal for the workplace, right? It is, and we're getting into the territory. I know that's Ken's territory too, about university being a safe place to exchange ideas and so on. But it is a place where people have to get along, and they're all adults now legally. It's no longer high school. They all have to get along, and they have to follow certain rules about getting along. And one of the things Israel is doing with the alliance is to say, look, you may be prejudiced about queer people, you may not know any. How can we figure out, how can we work together to make this a more comfortable place to be? University, coming in every day, college, just like you would come in at work, make it a more comfortable place to be for all of us. And what Israel is doing, he's kind of at the nexus of the queer community and, of course, Chicano community. There's all these different communities that kind of intersect, and it's to me, a mirror image of the workplace, particularly a modern workplace. Where, in the last show with Natalie, we talked about the workplace and Gen Z entering the workplace, and Ken talked a lot about how it's going to change, how other people that are in different generations can learn from Gen Z. This is what Natalie and Israel are living right now at Fullerton College.
Ken?
Oh,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
sorry. I just wanted to say that in anthropology, there's a term called positionality, and I'm sure Ken and Israel have heard of it. But basically, it's the idea that people of multiple different identities, backgrounds, statuses, all of those elements come together to help shape their own world. So, for example, someone who is an African American woman who's also queer, those are multiple different parts of that woman's identity. And so all of those different things affect the person and change their view of the world. So, an African American woman who is bisexual, for example, is going to have a very different view of the world and experiences in the world than someone who is for example, a straight white man. So, when talking about bringing people together in college and in the workplace and having people understand each other and kind of let go of some prejudice by talking with each other and having an alliance such as the Gay Straight Alliance, you're allowing people with various different positionalities to come together and try to understand each other and each other's positions on things and each other's what they've experienced and how they may view the world. And you have all these different people with their different worldviews coming together and in college discussing it. They're in a way so that they can prepare for the workplace where that also will be taking place.
Okay.
You know, I'll tell Natalie, one of my favorite undergrad classes was anthropology. The professor was Sherwood Washburn. You might have read about him. He was a greatly world-renowned professor in anthropology. He taught just a fabulous class in it, and I had taken his courses. It was terrific. So applying anthropology, psychology, sociology to the workplace and ultimately to life is really important. And I agree with you. I mean, to change people's attitudes. Now, people come with various beliefs and who knows, stereotypes that they've developed over the years. And a lecture and talking is fine, but to truly change attitudes, you do what Israel is talking about. Let's get together and listen and learn and interact and truly share our thoughts and beliefs. And that takes our beliefs to an entirely new level. Because again, it's not just something you read about or heard about, but to open your world up to new people. And then you translate that to the workplace. In my opinion, the most successful companies that I worked with are those that have that same mindset, that let's be as diverse as we can be, bring in the best people that we can, focus on learning and growth and development for everybody, and maintain two-way, open, honest communications, transparency. And companies do this. It's not just talking, but that kind of environment would be wonderful to come into after the kinds of steps that you're taking while in college to get these doors opened up and for us to understand others and for others to understand us. We all come from various backgrounds, interests, and to continue to interact with each other is a great way to grow. I honestly, and I say this myself, I am learning things every day. And that's just part of life. And partly, you know, through these programs, as well as other experiences that we have. So to look at the learning experiences that you can generate in college, certainly in the classroom, but outside through the groups, the kinds of alliances, so the actions that you're taking will help you, and you're helping others. You're helping those others around you so that they too can get a running start when they move out of the university and into the world of work.
Let's talk about the world of work as we transition a bit away from this orbit. But Natalie, professionalism, Gen Z and professionalism. I mean, you two are professional as it gets. So you're not in that stereotype, but certainly others are. So what's that about? What do you think, Natalie?
Well, first off, thank you. That's a great compliment coming from you. And what I've found, especially recently, so I'm talking last week, I have started working as a tutor at my college. And that means that I am working at a level where I am helping students who are also Gen Z and helping them with their English class. And most of them, most of the time, are very professional when they approach me, when they talk with me and email me. And recently, just this last week, I set up appointments for students to come in and for us to, discuss their essays and their assignments.
Male and female?
Yes, all sorts of people. And when some of them came in, most of them came in on time, ready to discuss everything. But some students, these were 15 minute appointments. Some students came in with 3 minutes remaining. They came so late that basically they missed the appointment. Some students didn't show up at all, no notice as to where they went. Some students showed up so past their appointment time that I couldn't even fit them in. Appointment is at 10, they show up at 11:30. I don't know what to do with that. I have other things to do. And for the most part, those students who did come late, they were very apologetic. They had various reasons as to why they were late. But I will say that's something that hit me. I was like, oh, okay, so, most of the students here are pretty professional, but some are just not showing up. Or showing up so late that, what am I even to do? And although they are very apologetic, something like that probably would not go over very well in the workplace. But that's something where, I don't know yet. I'm not in the workplace yet, but I can imagine that students would probably want to fix that type of behavior before entering the workplace because it could be problematic.
So
Okay,
I have to
Christian.
add,
Yes.
here that Natalie is getting paid by Fullerton College for each hour that she sits there waiting for people that don't show up. Okay, so this is not a game, and she doesn't just do this because she's a nice human being. She's an employee of the college. And when they don't show up, they basically take the university's money. And Israel just told us earlier how they can't afford to sanitize their food properly. They take the university's money and they throw it out the window. So it is a workplace in that regard. It absolutely is a workplace, and it is about money that is being lost here.
So you sent me that article,
Mm-hmm.
and I read it about an hour ago, so I'd be fresh on it. And it's reality. I mean, you have bosses who have a lot of responsibility and probably making at least six figures, and they don't have time for people who, and I mean, they don't care. If there's an employee there taking money from the company and they're not performing, or they're not up to the level of behavior, get rid of them.
Well,
So it doesn't matter if they're Gen Z, just anybody really.
true, but that's where it gets interesting, right? Because we talked a little bit about that last time. Um, you can't just get rid of everybody, because then you're not going to have anybody left. So, or you just be stuck recruiting all the time. So there has to be, it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray in there. And that's where the idea that of maybe you can coach them so that they change their behavior and you don't have to fire them comes in. It's very expensive to keep firing people.
Mm.
And you also have to have somebody who picks up the slack and who is reliable. And in my own career in mobility, where it takes about a year to train someone, there's a lot of tolerance you have to have for slight performance issues. You can't just fire everyone. You just can't. There's not enough people around that could replace that person quickly. So you learn to really be patient, but also to coach, firmly but steadily, and definitely with the employees' best intentions in mind. You learn to coach them and to really try to change their behavior, because you don't have a lot of other options.
Ken?
Yeah, it's interesting. On the one hand, certainly, Gen Z students coming out of college need to learn about the workplace. But I will say at the same time, the workplace needs to learn about Gen Z in terms of what these folks are looking for at work. At work that's relevant, that's meaningful. They want feedback. They want growth opportunities. They want recognition when merited. They want career development. They'd like to see companies that have physical and mental focus as well on their own well-being. They like a balance in life. They want to be heard. It's that type of mindset. So just as much as it's nice for Gen Z to learn, hey, look, if you're going to show up 2 hours late for work, that's not going to fly. But at the same time, employers and those in the workplace currently need to understand this generation as well, in terms of what they're looking for and what motivates them, what energizes them. And it's different. They want work that's relevant. They don't want to just go get a paycheck. They want to do something that's meaningful and significant and generating positive, measurable outcomes. And some companies say, yeah, look, here's the job, just take it. It's your 8 hours, I'll see you later type thing. That's not for this generation. So companies have a lot of learning to do as well. That's what, it's funny, get right back to these performance appraisals that are now much more forward focused. So yeah, you're getting feedback on your work, and Gen Z these folks want feedback. How am I doing? But they also want to know going forward, what do I need to do to improve? What steps can I take? What kind of training and education goes on here? Where can I take this in terms of moving my career into the future? And that's very different from, just go out there and go do your job and be happy you're getting a paycheck. That's not what's going to work with this generation. So I keep coming back to the learning on all sides, continuing to learn as we go along, for Gen Z to learn, as well as for those who are beyond Gen Z, some of us by many years, to keep learning as well, if we want to have a productive work experience for everybody and a successful operation.
Ken, so what about this thing called self-identity? Both these kids mentioned that to me earlier. Self-identity is like, I'm me and I belong here and blah, blah, blah. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be present, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to behave, they don't know how to network, because they don't think it's important. So from a psych point of view, would you please address that issue?
Well,
That's a big issue.
Yeah, I like the idea of self-identity. The more people understand themselves, the more effective that they're going to be in life. If they're honestly getting insights into themselves through their own introspection, as well as through their own interaction with others, I think that's very, very important. But at the same time, for those who are working with them to recognize that there is a need that they have for continued growth, to continue their self-insights. And we do change as we go through life. Do our deep core values change? So that's debatable, but so much more changes. People learn, they grow, they develop. But to me, when I see self-identity, I do translate that into a form of self-insight and self-confidence. And those are two major pluses, as opposed to coming out of school. Well, I don't really know what I want to do. I don't really know what I want to be. And, I hung around with a lot of people. I don't really know. There's no self-identity. And they can get themselves into the wrong positions, into the wrong jobs, the wrong career, as opposed to with that kind of self-insight, you have much more understanding of, where do I want to go? Natalie has found a calling in anthropology. Now, as she goes on, that could take her to a number of different fields, but at this point, she's passionate about it. And that's what I really like, that this generation is coming out with some passions and areas for additional passion. And that's going to carry them through work and through life. So I look at self-identity as quite a positive. And instead of just identifying with some abstract cause somewhere I think sounds interesting, and then just floundering around. And that's not happening. And again, by combining those in the workplace with this generation, you can get some remarkable results for both sides, for those in as millennials and Gen Z, as well as for those who are not.
So as we come to a close in the next 8 to 10 minutes or so, this can go on forever. So let's just do another show at another time. But Christian, Angelica, 15, already has a career path in mind.
Yes.
So that's her self-identity, right?
Yeah. She's also she'll hear me probably. She's very consistent. She even before she could walk, she would drag bags around because she's still into bags and purses, and
That's
she
funny.
will be in that area, marketing, probably marketing purses and marketing
So
other
it's like
fashion
a
elements.
natural evolvement.
And very, very focused, very focused. She wants to, I mean, she's already learning German and French, but she wants to learn Italian to be able to go to Milan and study fashion there. And, both with what Ken said, I'm very fortunate in that both of my kids and their friends, Israel, are very, they're together. They're goal oriented. They know what they want. They know who they are, and they figure out what opportunities there are. And in the United States, there are lots of opportunities. I still believe that coming from Switzerland as an immigrant, I believe that there's just because of the sheer size of the country, there's so much you can do to find your way. But to Ken's point, yeah, you have to have some kind of idea of what you want. And Ken, we talk about this all the time. Ed said earlier, dinner table, you have interesting conversations. And that's one of the topics we have all the time that, because both Natalie and Angelica are so goal oriented, we to some extent can't understand kids who are just floundering, who have no idea what they want to do. It's remarkable.
Well, it says a lot
So
of your wonderful children and also about how you and your wife have operated as parents.
Thank
It says
you.
wonderful things about your family. It really does, Chris.
Thank you. I
so
appreciate that very much.
so what does your daughter have to say about the movie or the theme? This is a little bit off the wall, I must admit, but the devil wears Prada.
She loves it.
She loves that
She
movie.
loves it.
She loves that movie.
She's seen it a few times. She loves it.
That's
And she
cool.
loves the Met in New York, and it's that's her world. She loves fashion. She loves
The Fashion Museum in Paris. She
yeah,
also
the Fashion
enjoyed that
Museum in
very much.
Paris. Yeah.
Well, on a recent medical TV talk show that I produced recently, um, we had the San Diego-based VP of Axiom Space. That company is building the new space station, the U.S. space station, actually be international, but it's being built in Houston, and it will be for commercial purposes. And it's being paid for essentially by commercial purposes. And for the new space station, the space uniforms are being designed by Prada.
There you go.
And I'll be sure you get a copy of that program so you can see all the
Gotta
text.
look good in space.
It's
Yeah.
going to be a great movie. The astronaut wears Prada. Till it comes to theater near you.
A male and female, so there's no
Yeah.
identity crisis.
Yeah. Yeah. Israel has researched the Zoot Suit riots, right?
Oh yes, that was a big thing I did
When
in
was
my
that? In the
first semester.
20s?
No, it was actually during World War II, around
Oh,
1944.
oh my.
So I was telling Natalie a bit this morning about it. Am I coming in well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I didn't know. Anyway, I was telling her a bit about it this morning, sort of with this idea of identity.
And
one of the things my
clothes.
paper mentioned was because it was banned in a couple school districts, one of it says was like it fosters animosity. Within my research, I had found that the concept of the zoot suit as well as bachuco culture, as we call it within California, because it was predominantly Hispanics who would don the drape shape, as they would call it. And in my research, I had found that it was not solely a racial, like a cultural cornerstone, if we would like to put in that wording. It was actually very interracial, but very designated to lower classes, particularly working, and to a vague degree, we could call it lower middle class, in part because you had to have the money to afford a zoot suit. But
Mhm.
because of the proximity of these, different ethnic groups and races within, you know, within each other, this mixing, this whole idea again of mixing ingredients, they begin to adopt things from each other. And so one thing that was noted throughout my research was that even what who we would call ethnically like white or Caucasian in the United States, many of them began to adopt Spanish and Spanish slang. A newspaper article I'd found was you'll find many. I'm trying to recite this verbatim. So give it more of a with a pinch of salt. But it's you'll find many kids of Scots, Irish, Jewish, European, Negro, and Mexican descent who will speak Spanish and don the style of these pachucos, as they were called. And so it was one of those things of I was telling Natalie how because of that, the Zoot Suit riots, it's actually a small burning point within Chicano history, especially. Um, it becomes this burning point because so many of our civil rights leaders, as our Chavez, Castro from the walkouts, a couple others, they were all Zoot Suiters themselves. Even Malcolm X actually was also a Zoot Suiter. And you begin to see this is one of the early burning points of they're exposed to this as children, and they begin to see it forms their identity. And I say children more so in like their teenage high school years. These were high schoolers being beaten up by sailors and then grown men, adults who had signed up and gotten drunk essentially, for the war. And it becomes this burning point that begins to create this new identity, the idea of Chicano. Because it's funny, the etymology of the word Chicano actually comes from a derogatory term for some of the braceros who were sent here, because many of them were Native American. I don't know how educated you are on this, but there are still many large Native American populations who still speak their languages. Yaqui and Nahua are the largest. Nahuatl is one of the larger recognized languages, but because they didn't speak Spanish, they were made fun of because the X sound in Nahua makes a sh, and therefore Chicano, Chicano. And it's one of those things of how even through being derogatory, an identity is formed, this new identity that's sort of just created from this melting pot, this mixture, even if it's been put under sort of the pressure of hatred. And so it's one of those things of how, let's see, I jotted some notes down, how Ken had basically put it, tolerance through essentially exposure, which is one of those things that was lacking at the time, is exposure. And so, yeah, it was really interesting. I wrote a small paper on it. A friend was saying I should have it published in like the school magazine, but I didn't feel confident with it being in the magazine.
This is such an education for me that to
Yes,
have this conversation recorded for all time.
certainly. I would certainly love to expand on sort of history within the last, I would say 80 years that has been the most influential on sort of how we are the way we are right now. Because I would say the last 80 to even 120 years were very influential. You still see these waves being, formed essentially, still hitting us today. If we have more time for that, because Natalie knows I can talk a long time, and I don't know if your audience really likes my voice yet.
My audience will behave the way they do, but they're not in my audience in person, so I don't care. I don't have any responsibility for that. So anyway, everyone, please come back on another show, and sometime in October.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And
Thank you.
let's go a little deeper, and maybe each of us can find one other to invite to join this conversation. So we grow the topic, depth, scope, and breadth.
Right.
It's
Great.
a win-win, eh?
Thank
All
you
right.
very
Thank
much.
you.
That
Thank
was
you
Have a
very
nice
much.
weekend. Thank
Thanks,
you
you
for
too.
doing this
Thanks to all of you.
in your
Thanks, Ken, for
evening.
coming.
Yes,
Dr.
yes,
Ken,
Israel, great to
check out
meet
some of your
you.
books.
Natalie, to see you again, and Kristen and
Yes.
Ed.
yeah.
Just
Okay.
Thanks to all of you. Terrific.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Nice evening. Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao, Matashta.